Hello, you guys, and welcome back to another episode of the 10 Dimensions of Wellness podcast. As you know, I am your host, Cami Red, and I am excited to have you join us for another phenomenal speaker as we continue exploring the diverse dimensions of wellness. Today, we are focusing on social wellness with Karmin Jenkins, one of our featured speakers for this year's Virtual Wellness Summit. Karmin is the owner of INR Healing for Abundant Living, where she dedicates her work to addressing the urgent need for improvement in our communities. This was all inspired by the state of our current social environment. Karmin is passionate about fostering healthier, more connected communities that support abundant living for all. So in this episode, Karmin will share some insights on the importance of social wellness and how each of us can contribute to building stronger and more supportive communities. So I am going to welcome to the stage right now Mrs. Karmin Jenkins, Coach K, as she likes to be called.
Hey,
Hello, Coach K, because that's what I'm going to call you for the rest of the episode.
that's quite fine, quite fine.
How are you doing today?
I am doing great. Good to see you and hear you.
Likewise, likewise. Now, I'm going to jump right into these questions. I
Okay.
want you to tell us a little bit about INR Healing for Abundant Living and the work that you do in promoting social wellness.
Sure. Yeah. So, like many of us, we are where we are in business, and even in sharing things with others based on our past experiences. And so, when I was retiring from the federal government, which was in 2017, prior to that, I was a Army soldier and went into the Army Reserves and retired from the Army Reserves in 2006. So I did some clinical social work for many, many, many years. And the culmination of that came in 2017. I was doing some community outreach. Um, Only God got me there through the Department of Immigrations, actually. And so I was retiring and just kind of like, what am I going to do now? And knew I didn't want to go back to clinical work, but I still wanted to be connected with people in a way that I could pour into them. And so I just did a lot of self-reflection and just really, really being honest with myself about where I was, where I wanted to be, and what my skill sets were. And I started to see some things about life coaching. And I thought, that's kind of resonating with me. So I did some more research and found out that there are a variety of different kinds of coaches. But the life coaching really settled in my spirit. And so pursued that, got a certification to give me some more foundations in some other areas. So I have been providing life coaching services to women since about 2018, but still wanted to do a little bit more and have women be able to dig deeper so that they really could hone in on who they are and why they're here in this world, what their purpose and their destiny is. And so started coaching women veterans and really started having a sense for wanting to be able to pour into mothers that have adult daughters, because those relationships and dynamics can be all kinds of different things. And also now supporting fathers that have adult daughters. And so from my own personal experiences, I have been able to look at the totality of life, where we are, and really how we should be living life. And I'm a Bible believer. I believe in the Word of God. And so Scripture tells us in St. John 10 that Jesus came to give us life, that we would have
Yes.
life more abundantly. And so that word abundance has been really a part of my life platform. And so my business is called Inner Healing for Abundant Living, because oftentimes there are things within us that we need to have healed or even removed so that we can live the life that we have been meant to live. And so that's kind of where I am. I really am still even in this healing process of some areas of my life myself, and being very transparent about those at this point. I feel that if I'm going to be authentic and be originally who I've been
Yes.
created to be, I have to be in a holistic place of wellness so that I can share with other women that may not quite yet be comfortable sharing with others some of the trials and tribulations that they've been through. And so through that, it's allowed me to connect with people in my community who are very passionate about having a holistic, healthy community. And so that's kind of where that social wellness comes into to play. But in order to be my best self for my community, I've got to be my best self to myself first.
I love it. Now, what are some of the key issues that you're seeing as you're working with people today?
You know, the communities of the world are very similar. I've had the honor and opportunity to travel to some other countries, being in the military, and also with some other pastors that I'm in connection with. So I've been to Germany, I've been to Africa, I've been to Hawaii, and I've been to various places. And there's some things that are the same in every culture. Every culture has challenges related to financial equity and economics. Every culture has challenges related to healthcare and stable housing. Every culture has some degree of challenges related to the resources that are available to people. Some resources are more available if you have more money versus those that don't have as much income. Education is a challenge for many cultures. Some cultures require children to excel and succeed, and some cultures are very challenged with understanding the importance of education. And so, with those kinds of components, what I've come to understand is that there's some key areas or spheres that influence our lives. And in order for our lives to be balanced, those things have to be balanced and be healthy as well.
Okay, I apologize about that. Now, let me ask you this, Coach K. You stated that you work with in your services. You talked a lot about women working with mothers in their relationships with daughters and fathers in their relationships with daughters as well. Um, what inspired you to go into that particular specialty when it came to that area of wellness?
Yeah, so again, everything that I have my hands in has been a part of my own life's journey.
Hmm.
And so, you know, as I have an adult daughter who now has a toddler daughter, she has two sons as well. But I reflected a lot last February about my relationship with my mother. She's passed, and she passed in 2011, and the
Okay.
relationship with my daughter, and some areas that we have grown in, some areas that I grew in relationship with my mother, but still some areas where there were some challenges based on where we were developmentally. And so it really sparked me to want to lean in to those relationships that mothers have with their adult daughters, because oftentimes the world tells us that women are in conflict, that we can't get along, that we can't do things well together. And I just don't believe that that's true. I believe that we're more alike than we are different. You know, and sometimes some of the friction and some of the challenges come from some of the similarities. Many women process their emotions and their feelings very similarly. And so sometimes it's those kind of hormonal clashes that
Hmm.
we experience, and types of personalities that oftentimes get us off track. But I believe that we're stronger together, and we've been meant to be in a place of partnership and unity so that
Yeah.
we can get through these challenges of life. And similarly for fathers that have adult daughters, my father has passed on, and he never got to see his grandchildren, my children, or have a relationship with them. So there's some things that went well in my relationship with my father, and then
Hmm.
there's some things that I wish had been better. So I really have a heart's passion for those two parental places, mothers and fathers, that have daughters in their lives, because it's just such a dear and important relationship.
Now, I can speak to personal attestment on both of those. As my parents age, I've been mending the relationship. My mother wasn't around when I was younger.
Hmm.
So as we got older, I started to really work on our relationship. And my mother and I actually do community service projects together.
Nice.
And I am extremely close to my father. So I get exactly what you're saying about bridging those gaps. Now, let me ask you this. Can you share more experience in, your more about your experience in bridging those gaps, and what were some of the challenges and some of the successes that you faced, or maybe some challenges and successes that some of your clients have faced?
Yeah, sure. For me, I can say that as a child, there were things that I saw and experienced that I didn't really understand or
Mhm.
really knew how to process. I saw it from a child's point of view. And as I became a teenager, having some of those independence and feelings of I know what I'm doing and I've got this all together, and not really appreciating the wisdom of the adults around me. And so I would say for me and my mother, my teenage years were probably the most challenging, probably for her as it relates to me. But from my perspective, it's like she don't know what she's talking about. She just doesn't want me to
Okay.
have fun. She just doesn't want me to do this. She's old fashioned, and and so I kept giving her the stop talking to me thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Listen.
as I became an adult, I then began to understand what she was trying to impart into me and
Yes,
began to appreciate it. And I think for me, I really wanted and needed a sense of people seeing me and knowing me, understanding who I was.
I love
And
that.
as a teenager, I didn't really feel like my mother really understood me. I always knew that my mother loved me, but I didn't always feel like she understood me or valued my perspective.
Yes.
And so I kind of feel like she was a little controlling and just, really had her hands on me. And I just wanted to experience life. Just let me figure it out. And she was not having that.
That is not unlike any other teenager, because I think
You
from the
know?
age of 13 to what,
Come
15,
on.
16, 17, they all go through that. Me speaking from experience, and then
Yes.
also me from being a mother and raising a teenage
Come
boy.
on.
So it doesn't matter if it's boys or girls, it's
It
across
truly
the,
doesn't.
yeah.
It truly doesn't. And so when I left go to the military, I was only 17, and I left to join the army the month after I graduated from high school.
Okay.
And initially, I wanted to go to college. Like, let me just go to college and let me, experience the college campus life. And my mother was like, you're not ready for that. I'm not wasting money to send you to school because you have no idea what you want to do. So my mother, being my mother, always see things in the forefront. She got with one of her brothers who had been in the army, and unbeknownst to me, they came up with this plan for me to join the army. So they had the recruiter come to my house, and we all sat at the dining room table, and they was just talking. And I'm sitting there like, what is happening in this moment? So after listening to the recruiter, I initially agreed to join to prove a point.
Right.
And it was kind of a little out of rebellion. It's like, well, since you want me to do this, I'm going to do you and show you that I can do this well. So again, we were clashing.
See, listen, you was trying to prove a point, but it turned out to change your entire life, didn't
Well,
it?
little did I know she
Yeah.
knew what she was talking about.
Your mama knew
So
you better than you knew
yes,
you. Oh,
absolutely. And and,
yeah.
and that's the case for many parents. We can see things that they can't because we've lived life more than they
Yeah.
have. And so I joined the army, and basic training was great. AIT, that's your advanced training where you learn about your skill and specialty. That was good, but I really started to miss being home. I was my mother's only child. My father had three other children, and so it was really a close relationship with me and my mother. But sometimes there was a little friction there, and I didn't realize how much I appreciated my home until I left home.
You
And so
never
the first
do.
year and
Yeah.
a half to 4 years of me being in the army was really challenging. There were a lot of things about life I did not yet know. And so being in the army kind of forced me or catapulted me into this adulthood that, psychologically and emotionally, I wasn't really ready for. I had not had a whole lot of life experiences, although I had had some. So I often, called my mother to ask her questions and, tried to get some insight. So it was kind of a cultural shock for me. But over time, I actually ended up re-enlisting after I got over being a little angry. I kind of felt initially like my mother just sent me away. Understand that it really was the best thing she could have done. Because as she, was communicating, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and who knows where I would have been if I had not had that foundation of structure and direction from the military. And so I ended up staying in the military until I retired. And so, as I got into my 20s and 30s, then I could speak to my mother in a way of being an adult woman versus being
Yeah.
this immature teenager. And so we began to get closer and began to be able to have the conversations that we probably would not have had if I was still in that angry, rebellious mode.
Yeah, yeah. So let me ask you this. For someone looking to improve their parental relationships or familial relationships, because not everybody has parents, maybe they're working with their grandparents or
Right.
just an older adult, their aunt or their uncle, what are some of the first steps you think they should take?
Having someone in their life that's an adult that they can trust. I also know to understand and believe that the family that we grow up in may or may not always be the healthiest of families.
Right.
Mine was not. And so there were people outside of my nuclear family that I developed relationships with that would also speak into my life and that were there when I needed them. They didn't overstep their boundaries, but they were there for me when I needed them. So I had neighbors that had children. I had, friends whose parents were like aunts and uncles to me. And so I think even if it's school teacher, having someone that you can go to really pour your heart out to, someone who's responsible, someone that's not only trustworthy, but someone that has some wisdom. Because people can share a lot of things with you, but they may not things that are going to be helpful to help you grow, and they may not be things that are nurturing. And so I was able to find that outside of my nuclear family. And even when I joined the military, there were other people that I saw their lifestyles different than the lifestyle I had when I grew up. And I thought that's what I want. And I would have conversations with them about what it took for them to get there, whether it was their marriage, whether it was, them being a single adult. But having that, I believe it, we have that saying, it takes a village to raise a child. And I
Right.
really do believe that. And so your village may be an extended village, an extended network.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Now, you've mentioned about the importance of seeking support and consistency. How can individuals find and or build supportive networks within their communities?
You have to be willing to step outside of yourself. There are many things in this world that have taught us to become isolated. We learned that during COVID
Hmm.
because we didn't have access to people directly. And so people that weren't really comfortable with social media or getting on Zoom or other types of things where they would be seen and heard became very, very seclusive and reclusive. And so you have to have, even if it's taking a risk, but
Yeah.
taking that first step to step outside of yourself and connect with a group. There are many groups in my community that I connected with, not really knowing what the experience was going to be like. But I always found a connection with someone within those groups. And
Okay.
so there are many, whether it's a book club, whether it's a sewing circle, but just having another group of people that have like interests that you have. And through those groups, you often develop more community.
Okay. Now, how do you see the connection between personal health and the health of our community?
They're co-connected. When we have community, whether it is in your neighborhood, whether it's city, whether it's state, it's an extension of your own health. So we're not meant to be isolated. We're just not created to be those kinds of beings. And so we need for our own psychological, emotional, spiritual um, development and health to be connected to other people. And so when you are connected with other people, it actually helps to make you healthier.
I love that. I love that. That last line, when you connect it with other people, it actually makes you healthier. I love that. Now, how does social wellness contribute to the overall thriving of a community?
The healthier the people in the community, the healthier the community will be.
Ah, Miss
So,
Coach K, you just dropping gems for them today.
so I'll repeat it again. The healthier that the people in the community are, the healthier the community will be. So when
Oh,
we look at communities, and that's not to say that there won't be tragedy or violence in a community. We've all been witnesses to those.
okay.
But when the community is healthy and the people come together, you see, even in the most tragic situations, you see how the communities connect and how they come together to support one another. So when we look at communities where there's been a mass shooting, when we look at communities where there's been earthquakes and other kinds of disasters, those communities that have the healthiest of people in them come together for the betterment of the community. So they step outside of themselves to do what's in the best interest of those around them.
Okay, let's expand that a little bit more. What are some ways people can actively contribute to the well being of their communities?
Find out what the needs are. I mean, it's really not as complicated as we make it. So, for
Okay.
example, I live in a cul-de-sac. So there are like 8 houses in my cul-de-sac. So for my cul-de-sac to be healthy and to be healthier than the community around us, we have to be connected and we have to have some concern about one another. So I know most of the families in my cul-de-sac, not just by waving when I go out to check my mail. I know the spouse, I know the wife, the husband. Um, Even when I'm not at home, I have neighbors that will look out for my home. And I do the same for them. So that means we've had some communication and we've developed a relationship to the degree that when you need me, I'll be there.
Okay. Now, what roles does common interest, like you just stated, you guys live in a cul-de-sac. How does that play into fostering social wellness within your community?
We have like concerns. So, I'm not a horticulturist, I'm not a yard person, but there are various persons in my cul-de-sac that I can go to and have gone to say, what do I do about this? So that means I had to step out of my comfort zone, right? And ask for assistance in an area that I'm not really sure about what to do. And readily they will say, well, you need to do this, or you need to put this down, or you need to be mindful of whatever that is. Whether it's getting rid of weeds, whether it's, the trees are growing all kind of ways and it's time for them to be trimmed. But I'm giving that example to say it takes letting go sometimes of your pride.
Mm-hmm.
It takes sometimes saying, I don't know everything. And I know that there's someone or people that know more than I do. Or I have some information and knowledge that will be helpful for the need that I see in my community. So going to the parent teacher conferences, you may no longer have children in school, but you may be a retired school teacher. And you
Yeah.
know exactly what that school system needs to be better. So it's getting involved.
Okay, I love it. Now, this is specific to you. How do you stay focused on the goal of improving community wellness, especially when there are sometimes you're faced with setbacks, or like you stated, when you don't know certain things?
I don't overextend myself. And I stick to those areas that I sense I can have the most impact.
Okay.
I have gone to various gatherings and been a part of them for a time period. Sometimes it was for me to gain more knowledge and information and for my growth and development. And sometimes it was to give assistance. But I've always known that it doesn't mean that you need to be a lifelong participant in some things. There is a specific purpose for each and every one of us, why we're here on this earth. And one of the things that I'm good at is taking what is the issue, listening to the input from other people and sensitizing that down to a point of, okay, so this is probably the best next step. It doesn't mean I'm the one that's going to bring that to pass, but I'm good at summarizing and consolidating. And I know that for me, families are very important. My family has been very important. There are a lot of things I've learned from being in a family. And so that's where I gravitate to, things that are related to family, things that are related to building families up in a community.
Okay. Now, what are some unique or surprising benefits you've observed in communities that actually are starting to prioritize social wellness?
Yeah, I think, my community might be a little more unique than some others. It's not a vastly large community. It's probably a medium, mid-sized community. Um, but there are various people within the community that I live that are very involved in community efforts.
Okay.
And so it's not difficult to be a part of. What sometimes has been the challenge is getting everybody on the same page.
Now that's challenging anyway.
But what is essential is that we are all in agreement on what the core matter is. We may have different ideas about how to resolve it, how to get there, but we're all in agreement on the main thing being the main thing. And
Okay.
so I tend to gravitate to people that think that way, and are willing to step back, um, and not have to have their name be on the billboard, but the focus be on what the cause or the mission is.
Oh, I love it.
So
Okay.
so for me, and I would say for the most part, many people in my community, not necessarily are they leaders of the community, but they lead their lives in a way that they're connected to the causes in the community that are going to be for the betterment of the community.
Okay. Now, you've been involved in co-authoring some projects. Can you tell us more about these and how they relate to your work with inner healing, abundant living?
Yeah, and it's also a part of social wellness. I don't see
Yes.
social wellness just as the family and the city where I live. It's this world. We are a social entity with interconnected components and parts. And so um, this year, I don't know exactly how I got there. It was
You
not
put
before
yourself out there. That's how you got there.
because I am not an avid enjoyer of reading, nor am I a person that loves to write. The two most challenging subjects I had in school was English and math. So go figure.
Well, listen, you talked
But
about putting yourself out there. You said that earlier. So don't
exactly,
say you don't know how you got there. You got there because you took your own steps.
we're gonna agree on that.
Yeah, you took your own steps and you put yourself out there and
Yeah,
you went outside of your comfort zone. So, yeah.
absolutely. And still am. And so through social media, it can be a benefit or it can be a hindrance. But I was honored to connect with some other women, just as I have been able and honored to connect with you, that had some anthology projects that they have already done some in the past, and they had some new ones for this year. And so the ones that I was led to were ones that really spoke to me. And so the first one, and they all have not yet been released, was In the Pursuit of Fearless Living. Well, I was like,
Ooh.
that exactly is what I'm doing.
I love that though. You got to keep us posted on when they get released because we want a
Yes,
part of that.
absolutely. And hopefully that one will be out in another month or so. And
Okay.
then the second one was Turning My Pain into Purpose. So they all really speak to what I am doing currently. Um, and then I have been honored to be a part of one that's not going to be out until next year. And it's with an organization called Women Thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And I really feel like this is the season of my life where I am thriving. And then the last one is going to be next November, and it's a military one. It's a doctor was in the Army, and he was looking for veterans and other people to participate in his anthology. And a part of the one that I'll be writing, each one have been a chapter in the book, the projects I'll be writing on, encouraging people and empowering them in some kind of way. So all of them have come from a place of where I am or where I have been, but it's all a part of social wellness. It's a way that I can pour into others without physically having to be there. They can read and receive something from the writings that will help them to feel empowered, to move forward, to thrive more than they may already be thriving, and to really understand that their life matters. All of us have a story, and all of our stories matter, and we need to be able to hear from one another, so that's a part of community.
Okay. Now, how do you balance your personal wellness with your commitment to improving social wellness in the community?
I make sure I take care of myself. I take time for me. Some of my friends tease me about it, but I do. Because if I'm not well and healthy, I can't be healthy for somebody else. I have not always done that, though. There were many years of my life where I would put other people before myself. And I learned that that is not a good practice. And so I take time, I won't say every week, but I carve out time on a regular monthly basis just for Karmin. If it's not anything but taking myself to the movies or taking myself out to dinner, I might go get a manicure and a pedicure, but doing something for me. Even for my birthday, which is this month in September.
Happy birthday, Coach K. Go ahead.
Yes, last year I said to myself, I'm going to take myself on a vacation, which I've done before, but I've never gone out of the country by myself.
Oh, where are you going?
And I said next year it's going to happen. So I'm going to an island location.
All right, I got you.
Gotta stay tuned to enhance my social wellness.
Okay.
And learn about some other cultures. But again, it's taking those steps. They may be a little, uncertain. You may feel a little shaky in your knees, but every step brings strength. And so, that's a part of my platform. If I'm going to tell people that they have a life to live that's abundant, I got to show people that I'm doing it as well.
I love it. Now, what are some key factors that you believe are essential for communities to thrive socially?
I think that the three key factors are interconnected social systems. They have to be interconnected. All the systems need to be connected in a way that they're working together. That's one. So the medical, with the legal, with the law enforcement, with the education, those major entities need to be in an interconnected compact or partnership. The second one is that those cultures within the community need to have an identified point of contact. So what does that look like? So if the predominant culture in the community is Indian, there should be someone within that community that is connected with those systems, so that when persons within that culture need any kind of help, they know where to go in a lateral way. So that point of contact can reach out, or those systems can reach out to that point of contact to bring in services for that culture. And I believe the generational connections need to be intact. So the younger persons need to feel that the older persons in the community understand their points of view and positions, as well as for the elderly community, because a lot of times we leave them out on both ends. We leave out the younger portions of our community, and we leave out the elderly portions of our community. And then the age groups in between, they're just doing all kinds of different things. So there needs to be a thread of bonding within those generations, so that when one is having a challenge, all of those generations come together. So I think all along what I have been describing is what we would call unity. And that looks different for various people.
Yes.
But unity just means that we all are coming together. We may not all agree on the same things, but we're unified in a way that it's going to be of help.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you this same question twice, but just with different endings. The first one I want to say is, what message would you give to someone who's feeling disconnected from their community and wants to get involved?
Um, it's the same as, you asked earlier about, how do you find someone that you can be connected to? It's gonna again take us reaching out to just the next person that is like you, looks like you, sounds like you, talks like you, thinks like you, and we find those most often through social media, but
Mm-hmm.
everybody's not on social media. But there are still ways to reach out and to find people, particularly for people who can't get out of the home.
Yeah.
There's some people, because of disabilities, they can't leave their home, but there's helplines, there's hotlines, there's still ways to connect and be connected. So again, it's still reaching out.
Okay. And my next one is the same question, but this one is actually about family. What messages would you like to give to someone who feels disconnected from their family and want to improve those relationships?
That's a challenge. That's a difficult one, because some families are not willing to
Set
hear.
up, yeah, set up or equipped for that. Go ahead.
And so sometimes we have to build our own families. And that would be what I would encourage people to do. Um, and I kind of gave an example of that earlier. When I joined the military, I built a different family because I had people in the military that weren't genetically a part of my family, but they became my family.
Yes.
So
Family ain't
sometimes,
always blood. So, yeah.
yeah, and sometimes that's what we have to do. Sometimes we stay in a state of grief and depression, because we're desiring things from people that they're not able to give. And so you have to sometimes forgive. You're not going to forget necessarily, but you have to forgive and then take the step to move on, and then allow your life to be filled with people that love you, that care about you, that are concerned about you, that want the best for you, that will be there for you. And as you said, that may not be your biological family, but there is someone, there are people that care.
Okay. Now, what are your final thoughts or advice that you would like to share with our listeners about the importance of building community and social wellness? Now, before you answer this, I want you to also include how our listeners can get in touch with you as well.
Sure. I think it's what I said before, is to not isolate yourself. You have something that somebody else needs. And if you stay to yourself, then someone else's life of abundance is being hindered. And so when we understand that we are a link in the chain of someone else's life, hopefully that motivates us to be a part of our community, to be a part of a network of support. And so that's my encouragement, to connect and stay connected and pour into people in the same way you would want someone to pour into you, or that you need someone to pour into you. We often receive by giving, and there's an equity of exchange that comes when you give. And so that's what I would encourage people to do. Give in some way. And it doesn't mean that you physically have to go anywhere. You can give through online if it's financial, or you can give time by being a part of a hotline, and you can be right in your home and they give you an alternate number that people call and you answer, and you are a voice on the line for somebody else. So to connect and stay connected is the best advice that I can give. And the second portion of that is to live your life in a way that is giving you some kind of fulfillment. We have lives that have so much still yet within them that we sometimes have not even tapped into. So don't live beneath your needs, your purpose. Live to the best, to the fullest, to the top, so that when we leave, you leave this earth, you know that you've given your all to the world. Reach me is really easy. You can reach me through my link tree. It's Karmin Jenkins, Inner Healing for Abundant Living. You can reach me through my website, www.ih4al.com. Those are the easiest ways to reach me. My email address is healing at letters IH, the number 4al.com. And all that's on the link tree or on my website.
Absolutely.
So hopefully.
Yeah, we'll put it on the description of this podcast episode as well.
Okay. Yeah, you've gained, a little nuggets, some nuggets today.
Yes. And listen, don't let me say this. You can also reach her at the 10 Dimensions of Wellness Summit at the end of this year. The link is going across the bottom of the screen because Ms. Karmin will be speaking to us about social wellness there as well. So you got a little glimpse today, just a little glimpse into what she will be talking about with us. So Ms. Karmin, I want to first just say thank you so much for being a part of the podcast. Thank you for being a part of the virtual summit as well. This has been a joy. You guys, let me just say, you can check out Ms. Karmin, and I'm going to put her information on the screen. That's a wrap for us today on this episode of the 10 Dimensions of Wellness podcast. A huge thank you again to Ms. Karmin for sharing her powerful perspective on social wellness and community improvement. Karmin's dedication to healing and connecting communities through inner healing for abundant living is a timely reminder of the impact that we all can have when we work towards a common goal of bettering our social environments. If you were inspired by today's conversation, be sure to join us at the Virtual Wellness Summit for more from Ms. Karmin and other speakers committed to enhancing our collective well-being. Check out our website for all the details, and thank you for tuning in. And remember, social wellness starts with each of us. Let's continue to nurture our communities and strive for the abundant living. Until next time, take care and stay well. And don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and follow the podcast on whatever platform you're listening or watching it on right now. Thank you so much and have a great day, you guys.